Welcome to Civics Chat, Empowering Youth in Democracy, a podcast brought to you by Dominicanos USA that dives deep into the heart of civic engagement and amplifies the voices of the future leaders of our society. In each episode, we will discuss with our youth ambassadors the essential elements of democracy and discuss why voting matters to them.
Welcome to our third episode of the podcast Civics Chat. I'm Carlos Sanchez, Civic Engagement Coordinator at Dominicanos USA, and today I'm here with three incredible panelists, and we're going to talk about a crucial topic for the youth.
Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Lloyd. I just graduated from Fannie Lou Hamer Freedom High School, and I'm currently going to be a freshman at Savannah State University.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jose Hernandez. I also graduated from Fannie Lou Hamer Freedom High School, and I will be attending Lafayette College, so I'm excited for that.
Hello, I also graduated from Fannie Lou Hamer, and I will be starting my first year in Burke College.
So we're here with three incredible ambassadors. So before we dive in, the Ambassadors Program was created and established to promote leadership among young people with voter registration, voter mobilization, and voting education. So I would like to know about your experience as an ambassador.
Hello, everyone. With me being a part of this program, it has definitely motivated me to learn more about how we can innovate and strengthen the criteria for young people to learn and encourage our youth and on the importance of voting and to registering to vote. I think on a whole wide perspective that there's so much in this world that is going on that we need to come to conclusions about. And also question, but with this program, it made me realize that things are happening and without each and everyone's vote in a way, not to sound dark, but our livelihoods can be at risk. So I think this program for an eye-opening experience to showing me, to showing the people the positive of voting and how registering to vote does matter.
Thank you for that, Richard. I think I definitely agree. I feel like it's very important, to do this type of programs because it's a way to give voice to, the youth, basically, people like us, immigrants who might not know about certain things like voting. So I just feel like it was very eye-opening to do this experience. And, I look forward to keep being engaged in my community because that's the way to change the world.
I totally agree. And at first, personally, from my experience, I wasn't so much into this because I really never wanted to open myself to really figure out what's going on in the world. And with this program, it has made me realize that I should help other people that are in the same situation that I was in, who are just clueless, and to inform them on what's going on in the economy.
So besides learning about civic engagement, one of the main points of this program was register other people to vote. So what were some of the challenges that you have when you were trying register young people and other people in your community, and how you overcome those challenges?
I think this kind of ties neck and neck to what I was stating previously, to the fact that within this whole perspective scale, that what's going on in our reality is some real stuff, and that's something that should be taken into consideration. Something that necessarily the youth is keeping tabs with, which has been a dilemma, what's soon to happen in our nearest future, that puts everyone in risk. And when I emphasize on everyone, people of color, members, a part of the LGBTQ+, men, and especially women who won't receive fundamental safety and healthcare for their own safety, and other legislative laws that will be happening if we don't consume and swallow what's been thrown at us. And I think trying to encourage young people to try to register to vote was yet difficult and challenging because a lot of young people does not kind of know what has been happening, and the miscommunication that's not being provided within the youth and are not tuned in because of this topic that is so strong and heavily talked about. But overall, though, with this process of teaching the youth, it also has benefits because when young people see other young people doing good, they like to try to strive and kind of follow to do better as well. So not only for themselves, but also for their community, like you said, Jose. And I think that little by little, doing my research on the topic, as well as trying to teach my peers, I think that was something that I kind of overcame, trying to get people to learn about actually why voting does matter and how each vote does count.
And it was interesting to see, as I was, registering people to vote, especially in the Bronx. I don't know. People were like kind of hesitant because in the voting process says you need your social security, and then they were like a little hesitant to give that out. So it's like interesting to see how people react to like things that have to do like with the government because we're like overprotective about it. Like, we don't really want to know, even though they know everything about us. But I feel like that was a very interesting aspect. And how I overcame those challenges, was just basically speaking to them about like the importance of this election because we have two choices, which, we'll get into it later. Like, I don't want to share my opinion now, but, two interesting choices. But
I felt like a spokesperson going to different classes because most students were like, oh my God, they ran away from me, some of them. It was really difficult because some students were like, oh, I don't want to vote, blah, blah, blah. But I had to inform them on like how their voices can make a good impact to this world. And I feel that if students just stand there and just be like, no, I don't want to do this, the world's gonna get even worse. And I just feel that even though you don't want to do something, at least try and do it to see if you can make an impact. And most students, I respected their wishes that some that they didn't want to do it, but I also feel that those students, like as they're like of age, like when they turn 18, then they'll realize what's going on in the world and they'll decide to vote.
So we educate them, we register them, but how we can mobilize them to vote for the upcoming presidential election in November, and how you feel about it, this upcoming presidential election in November?
I don't know. I've been feeling a little iffy about it. Like I kind of just been like praying a little bit every day by day about like our society as a whole because I don't know. I just think like the safety not only for myself but how everyone gets put at risk because it's such a big topic that we're not really taking much into consideration about. Um I think this year will be the year of voting where we will need our young people because each vote does matter. And with the presidential power of trying to pass laws without the congressional the constitutional and congressional approval of the Supreme Court or however it goes, I'm sorry. Um Something super endangering and something that puts our society as a whole at risk of repeating history, like everything going back to its original state if we don't do something. So I think personally I'm not much of a strong advocate for like political parties or like political topics as much, but I try to learn as much and believe in what I believe in for the sake of my community. But honestly, I think that with this year's election, we are at its peak because whatever happens, we as the people go down. And it's almost scary to think about. Yeah, I feel like when it comes to politics, it's just the way that it goes. Um, it's just going back. We as the next generation should be more concerned about because like this is our country that is on the line. Yet like we're living in it, and within these laws that are coming to us, I think that it's just gonna backfire if we don't do something and act on it now. So I think that's kind of how I've been feeling a little bit about it. You know, like you said, it's two people that I feel like we gotta really like open our eyes and do our research about and actually like commit to actually finding out what's going on into our society. And especially us being so young doing this is gonna teach the next generation how much we can overcome.
So Richard, you mentioned that each boat matter, but how we can take that boat to the pool, especially like young boat to the pool?
I think as far as that, maybe getting into like a full effect of youth and getting on board with like getting people engaged with learning about the history of what's going on, how the presidential election works, maybe how polling works, even just seeing how like the vote goes into like the ballot. I think like little things can make a big difference within how we see it because at the end of the day, the bigger picture is the bigger picture. And I feel like if we don't act on something now, then we're gonna just be left in regret of what we could have done better. So I think that's something that maybe we should probably start thinking about now as like the presidential election is gonna like start going now. So yeah.
the media mostly portrays like Trump and Biden, and I feel like there's more choices for us, options. So I feel like that will be a good way for the media, to actually like lend us those options that there is, so we can, increase the voting and stuff like that.
I totally agree, and I feel that since we're like stuck with Trump versus Biden, I feel that most people they just be like, oh, it is what it is. They just pick whoever is like really there, who's like really more beneficial for us. I feel that they should like look more into it and just be like, oh, just look more into it and just not ignore like I'm not saying like to like ignore like the background, the bad history behind the presidents. It's just to look at how they could benefit us. And I feel like that people like the youth just ignore it because they be like, "Oh, I'm so young," and they just think that they're not so important. But like they're basically our future, and they're basically the ones that shape it for us.
And I was even seeing like during the debate, like how the both of the former presidents, we could say, I guess, were like speaking about on immigrants. It was very scary because I'm an immigrant myself, and it was just scary to see how they were expressing themselves, like calling each other, terrorists. I mean, calling immigrants terrorists, and that's scary because a single story creates the definite story, right? So we don't want that to happen because then that's gonna put us in danger. People are gonna see us through different lens, and that's really dangerous for us, I think.
I agree. Also, to add on to you guys, I think like things can happen a lot in 4 years span. So even with the presidential election, just recruiting one person to be our like president, I would say there's so much that can happen in a year that can just change our whole society as just like one thing that just limits us to do one thing and be one thing. So like it is something scary that we have to look into because like the older that we get, the more things change, the more time change, the more people grow and start seeing things differently. And not saying I don't want it to be like a time where we have to look back and say like, wow, we should have done things differently. But I think like when it comes to voting, we should take that vote or at least look into how our vote does kind of count because we don't want to think about like things we could have done differently.
So Richard, you mentioned something about safety issue. Young people have a lot of like topics, let's say, that they concerned about, like housing, cost of living. So how do you think this topic or this issue that are affecting like our young population can be arrangement and how this can motivate young people to vote?
So like from my perspective, coming from like someone who has like older friends who hasn't voted after like turning 18, I think the biggest challenge is the confusion and how risky talking about politics can be. So I think in our generation there is immense amount of anxiety and confusion that comes in mind for young people to kind of pick a side, and in a way it's kind of government over government, meaning like from my perspective, so Richard Lloyd's perspective, when there are people who have their mind up made already and they know how they want things to go, people who are willing to listen, um, not want to because there is no supplementary support from the people in power to see how other reinforcements can work in our world. So it's like, which it makes it pointless for someone to be interested in a conversation that has no punctual for other feels. I mean, no punctuation for others to feel heard in a way. So I think like, you know, it's a kind of scary thing that we look at because it's like, well, I don't have a voice. If I'm not being heard, I don't have a voice. But it's like, if you're not giving that voice, it's like you're obviously not gonna feel like you don't belong or you don't matter because it's like it's power over lore. So it's kind of like a win-win. It's kind of like a lose-lose situation in a way. But I do think that with like going back to what you said, Carlos, about like even looking at like how we can get like young people within like polls or like seeing how it works and how we can like take it to the next steps is really, really empowering. And we can also think about things that we can do in a depther way to see maybe the youth can change this or maybe we can do this differently.
Well, so for me, I can say I'm blessed that I don't have, college debt. That's like a really big issue that's happening in today's era. So I feel like if we were to touch more on that on college debt, like I heard like Biden is trying to do something, about college debt, managing that. Like I feel like at the end of the day, also education should be free because the more people we have who are educated, the more better our world is gonna be. So I feel like if we increase that, that means that we can also increase those voting polls and stuff like that. So
Well, how you see yourself and your like young peers influence in the 2024 election results? Do you think that young people is gonna have a big role in the results?
yeah, I feel like we are, because at the end of the day, we're like the most knowledgeable about this stuff, because we're like first there, like we're seeing it first person. So I feel like we're gonna have a big impact, whether it's sharing social media. Social media is like a big platform that we can share, and as we mostly know, it's us young people who share those information.
I also agree, and I feel that schools should like take charge and have like at least like a class to learn about politics. Like even if the politics could be like a little like ruthless and like a dark history, we still have to learn it either way. Like since we learned about immigration, we should learn about also other sides of like we should also learn other sides of how immigrants feel. Like what's their point of view? What do people of color think? Like how do they see themselves? How can the economy benefit us? Like
Or can the economy benefit?
can they? I believe that with our votes, yeah, with our votes, I believe that if we're gonna vote for somebody, they have to benefit us. We can't just give our votes willy nilly like that. We have to like they have to benefit us in a way.
And I have a question. Do you feel like that's kind of why people, like young people, feel like they don't need to vote? Because it's like we have to kind of, the government has to win them over in a way to like make them want to vote. Like, you know how like, for example, Trump, like he came to the Bronx recently, like he had a whole pep rally at Crotona and was trying to get young people to like, be in his side. And it did work because a lot of young people were saying, wow, like we need to support him and vote for him. So you think in a way like that narrative kind of draws young people away because it's like we need to have a sort of like thing that kind of gravitates to like vote for someone in position of power.
I believe that either way, both presidents will have a way to like I guess win us over. We just have to pick like we have to believe we have like our own beliefs and things. And if I believe this person could like help me out for my future, then I'm not gonna say automatically, but like I'm gonna turn to that person because that person has what I need and has what I can like succeed in the future. And we have to be careful with what we want in the future because most presidents they could just lie to us. Like when it came to like immigrants, like Trump basically just didn't want immigrants coming in here to get like opportunities. And I feel that you should like wish carefully for what you want. So like I think that even though like let's say this one person could benefit me, be like, oh, I'll make you debt free for college. That may not be for everybody, like most immigrants, because some they can't get education for college. So I believe that we should just pick carefully and we should like all win as a society.
So now you were talking about different point of view. So how you manage political disagreement with your families and other peers?
I basically compare this voting process with financial literacy. Like it's a crisis. Like financial literacy, people like of color like us, they don't know about that. So they just choose anything and waste their money on things.
Like Jose said, it's kind of like a difficult topic because I really try not to like talk so much about like political topics in a way because like I'm more of in like the environmental science field. I like to learn more about like ways we kind of fight environmental racism regarding like sustainability practices and like injustice in our community. And I do feel like necessarily that they kind of go hand in hand, politics and environmental science. But then I think it's just very tricky when there's just like an upper hand of who has power and who can give you what. Within family, I feel like it's just starting to become like a branch out for like the older generation to actually start caring about voting more recently. And I think that's because of like this hierarchy of like how much people in power are like entitled to give you what you want if you do something for them. So like I think the older generation is kind of like full on board, like ready to vote because they don't want to repeat its history because they kind of have a sense of like how that history was kind of before in a way. And I do think like as a young person myself, like I'm starting to get educated on the topic of like what's going on within like the presidential election, but like someone that's my age, I feel like they still wouldn't understand because there's so much of the miscommunication that they don't tell young people at all. So yeah, I think it's just very like it's a very 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 difficult topic. I think like I'm still gonna be like 30 and still probably gonna not really know as much. So
I agree on that part. I feel that since I really don't talk about politics with people like that, but when it comes to like money, that's when I like start talking because I really want to focus on business and money can be a problem due to how taxes are rising and exactly. And I personally I really don't like taxes like that because well, at the deli things should be really cheap. But like nowadays I got like have change in my pants just to like I really don't like that. And I think that when it comes to that, that's when we should start talking about politics. And I'm not like really that big into like which side I should be on, but like if I believe I don't like something about the economy, then I'm gonna start speaking about it. And I think that if if money affects me, then I think money should if money affects other people, and we shouldn't just be quiet and be like, oh, I'll deal with it and pay for it. No, we should like speak up and wonder why things are rising.
No, definitely. That's why we need to speak about politics because politics affect every single aspect of our life. Uh, affect our finances, affect our rights. So I think we need to speak more about it, not politics. And based on your experience, what advice would you give to those like young people as you that are not involved in civic engagement?
I would say like I think if we keep encouraging our young people to learn more and to teach young people about what's going on in our society, then I think that's when we will slowly start addressing the problem in a way. And I think like if we start to really realize that we are the future, because we are like the generation, like within age, how life goes on, life moves on really fast. So I think like we got to come into that conclusion that like it's only up to us sooner or later to start making a change, and that's going to take some time. But I think if we start using our platforms, like we said, like our Instagrams, our TikToks, anything, like even reading books, maybe getting involved with like organizations, going to events, I feel like that's one thing that's could slowly start making things a little bit more like smoother as the process starts going on. And like you know I don't think like within like um youth civic engagement, I don't feel like it's ever gonna take like super quick, easy way to start getting students and young people on board with learning about the topic. But I do think that in a way, young people, we are so easily advanced and enough to realize things when they are bad and when they are injustices. And I think like, it's gonna take a lot of time, but it will get there if we just, go together, if we all keep doing everything in our power to make sure things are going the right way. So
Now you say that our generation is the future, but always say our generation is the future and the present because our vote can determine the future of the United States.
glad you said that, Carlos. Like even thinking about it, like us at Fannie Lou, like we did a topic about like the Cross Bronx Expressway, and if you guys don't know, like Robert Moses was the creator of the Cross Bronx Expressway, displacing thousands of people of color out of the homes in the Bronx. And I think like over time, we kind of did nothing. Like the Bronx, we had to rebuild our own community. Yet, like as a society now, us as young people, we're starting to take that narrative and switch it over by capping the Cross Bronx Expressway. So us as like the next future, like the future, like you said, a generation, like we have so much ability to change and make our world a better place. But I think it's just the tools enough to make people feel comfortable, make young people feel comfortable and trusted enough to actually make their voice feel heard.
Or even issues as like climate change in our school, how we was involved in high school, just like planting green spaces. I feel like that was a way that we actually gave back and was heard because we made sure to stay in our communities and actually like help out. So that made me feel really like empowering, and even like this type of programs, like I feel like more youth should join, be aware of this, because it's like Carlos was saying, like we are the future and the present. So let's make sure we use it wisely. So
Yeah, that is true. And I think that if you want to fix something, sometimes you have to do it yourself at times. So you can't just let somebody else do it for you if you really want to make a change. And that's the problem with young people. They just, I believe, like as before, like when I was like a freshman in high school, I just didn't really put myself out there because I felt that my voice wasn't like really heard, and I just let other people like make the change for me. But like as I graduated, I now think that if I want to fix something, I have to do it myself sometimes, and I like really have to really step out my comfort zone to like really let other people be informed about it. And you may uncover people that think the same thing as you do, and together you can really make a big impact in the future.
And this is how we conclude our third episode. We would like to thank New York Community Trust for making this possible. Also, we would like to thank Fannie Lou Hammer High School for Freedom for the partnership. We would like to thank also Jeff Faladin, the principal, and Mr. Adam Boone for these incredible students. We have Richard, Jose, and Chriselle.
Thank you on the behalf of Dusa, you, Carlos, just motivating us, putting your all and trusting us and believing in us. And it was a pleasure to share my voice on this platform. And thank you again.
yeah, for sure. Thank you. Actually, like really, really thank you, because these type of programs make me feel like an actual leader and, give me a voice. So it's good that you guys gave me the opportunity.
I really loved it, and I hope other students will have the pleasure to do this again.